All right, everyone. A very good morning to all of you. In the last installment of the Russian Revolution series of Demystifying NCRT, we had looked at the various reforms that were taken up by Lenin, socialist reforms rather, that were taken up by Lenin as soon as he came to power, along with his Bolsheviks and his supporters after the civil war in Russia. Um but today we are going to be discussing something along a very different tangent. We have discussed quite a bit of Lenin, but you will realize that Lenin was not just the only central figure in Russian politics in the 20th century. There is someone who's going to come and who's going to make a name for himself, but not necessarily in the best way possible. And I am, of course, referring to this particular individual called Stalin. All right. So let us just see how this goes. It's of course going to be a story. So you're more than welcome to take notes side by side, and we shall keep discussing the major concepts. Right. Okay. We are going to start our story with a very tragic incident in which Lenin dies. Right. Lenin dies of a blood disease. That's kind of ironic. Considering the amount of tormenting that he subjected people to, he basically died of a blood disease. On the 21st of January 1924, Lenin is no longer alive, right? And of course, when Lenin dies, there is a struggle for who's going to be the next chief of the Bolsheviks, who's going to lead the party, who's going to lead the country. And of course, there's a lot of khichdi that happens. And eventually, there is this one enterprising individual called Joseph Stalin. Joseph with an F, not a PH, right? Joseph Stalin. He comes to power and becomes the leader of the Bolsheviks, right? So, this is something that we sort of need to wrap our minds around. That's it. Like nobody's going to ask any more details. So Joseph Stalin comes to power and he becomes the leader of the Bolsheviks. Right. So now the story moves to 1927-28, roughly around 2-3 years since Lenin died and Stalin came to power. Right. In 1927-28, Russia is facing problems again. Of course, it is facing problems. It's like a unending series of disappointments that this country faces all the time. Right. So now what is happening is that there is a severe shortage of food grains in the country. Right. You remember in the last installment, we had also seen that Lenin, as a part of his socialist reforms, had fixed the prices for all commodities, and those also included food grains like rice, wheat, etc. etc. Now, the problem with fixing prices is that once you fix the prices, it may not necessarily be profitable for the people who are growing it. It's very obvious. Now, say for example, if you have put a bag of rice, 1 kilo of rice at rupees 10, and if the farmer is investing rupees 15 in order to grow that 1 kilo of rice, so that is clearly, the cost price, selling price thing, right? Selling price is the this thing is rupees 10, and the amount of investment that is going is rupees 15. So clearly there is a loss of $5, right? There is a clear loss of $5. It is costing the farmer 15 rupees to make it, and he's selling it at 10. So CP minus SP is loss. Basic mathematics, right? Cool. So it is not going to be profitable for them, and eventually what is happening is that they are becoming really cheesed off by the fact that they are not getting a profit, and they start to refuse to go grain at these low prices. Very simple. Basic human tendency, right? कि हम नहीं उगाएंगे. Simple. Stalin is not going to take this lightly, okay? He's not your chacha, or he's not your uncle who brings gifts on Christmas. Okay, he's of course very angry about this. Right? He's not very pleased with the fact that the farmers are again, not very happy about the way things are being run. He's like, hey, such ungrateful people, I'm doing so much for them, how dare they? Right? And to counter this problem, he imposes some emergency measures. Okay. Now, Stalin, you need to understand, is a disturbed individual. Now, let us just establish that in the beginning itself. He is not what you will call a very normal, happy person. Okay, he has some issues in life, and those issues really come to the fore when we discuss his economic and social policies. Right, so Stalin in his head feels that the rich and prosperous farmers of Russia, okay, this is happening in his head. Okay, he feels that the rich and prosperous farmers of Russia are holding the grain just because they want to demand better prices. So he's like, अच्छा shortage हो रहा है grain का, ठीक है, that he's acknowledging, but according to him it is not because there genuinely might be some problem with agriculture. Okay, he's like, नहीं, अमीर farmer तो grain चुरा रहे हैं and they want to demand better prices, so that is why they are hoarding grain. Cool. So this is roughly around 1927 this is happening, and in 1928 what this chap does is he sends his officers to the grain producing areas, basically the countrysides of Russia, wherein he forces the farmers to surrender all of their grain. Right? It is not the best move in the textbook to do that, because it will only agitate the farmers more. Right? He raids the farmers, he forces them to surrender all of the grain, and most importantly, out of all of the farms that he raids, he specifically raids the farms of the kulaks. Now these kulaks are basically, it's a Russian term for a prosperous farmer. Right? Basically a farmer who's well to do, who has a lot of land, who has a lot of money, etc, etc. Right? So they are called kulaks. So he makes sure that uska problem hai, he doesn't like these prosperous farmers. He's like, how dare they mint so much money, and they are the ones responsible for the grain shortage. But you realize, I think it's very obvious that the grain shortage will still continue, because the problem was not with the prosperous farmers. Okay, it was the problem in the economy itself. Like, it was a very damaged economy in general. Okay, so still, since the shortage still continued, what Stalin decides to do is he decides to collectivize the farms. Okay, he decides to collectivize the farms. Okay, now you need to understand what collectivize really means, and I'm just going to explain it very, very quickly to you using a diagram. Okay, now say for example in a particular area, there are 4 farms. Okay, farm 1, farm 2, farm 3, farm 4. Okay, and all of them are independent farmers. Independent farmer 1, independent farmer 2, independent farmer 3, independent farmer 4. Cool. And they all own their respective, like Lenin had given land to the peasants, if you remember. Please don't forget basic facts, okay, because they are connected to the concepts that we will study in the future as well. So Lenin had given land to the peasants under his socialist reforms, but now what Stalin does is Stalin takes away the land from each of these farmers, number 1. And what he does is he collectivizes the farm. इसका ये मतलब है कि now these 4 farms are not going to be independent. They are going to be one single amalgamated unit, and these independent farms will cease to exist. 1, 2, 3, 4 is no longer there. Khatam. It's over. Now these 1, 2, 3, 4 are no longer there. It is going to become one single, right? One single collectivized farm. I don't think this is rocket science. It's pretty simple to understand. And these 4 farmers that initially owned the land, they will now come together to work on this collective farm, basically as employees of the government. So this collectivized farm will be owned by the government, of course. Okay, this collectivized farm will be owned by the government, and if the farm is being owned by the government, this means that these farmers are going to be the employees of the government, right? So essentially the idea is that they are going to cultivate this piece of land, and they will of course pay a share of taxes to Stalin, grain to Stalin basically, and then the rest they can divide amongst themselves, like a true socialist society. That was the general idea. That is known as collectivization policy. Okay, now so he decides to collectivize these farms. I hope it is clear. And his another problem in life was that he was also of this opinion that why should one collectivize? Because these small farms that I showed you, farm 1, farm 2, farm 3, farm 4, according to him, these farms are so small that they perhaps could not be modernized. Okay, basically modern agricultural methods could not be implemented in these farms, and that is why it was leading to severe shortage of grain. So in his great theory, small farms were now the problem. Pehle prosperous farmers were the problem. Then small farms were the problem. So basically everything except his policies are the problem for him. Okay? Okay. Now if somebody talks about Stalin's collectivization program, okay, if somebody asks you what was Stalin's collectivization program, basically it was Stalin's idea of modernizing agriculture, and it involved three major steps. It's very simple to understand. First one was eliminate and get rid of all the kulaks. Kulaks were the prosperous farmers. Okay, eliminating them was his lifelong dream. He basically did not like them. Okay, for some reason. Okay. And he was also of this opinion, if you remember, that they were responsible for the grain shortages. Cool. Once you do that, his next step was to snatch land from the peasants, as I showed in the example, farm 1, farm 2, farm 3, farm 4. Right? And then last but not the least, the third and final step would be to set up large government controlled and supervised collective farms, as I again already explained to you using the example. Setting up large and government controlled are the keywords here, because it was at the end of the day managed and controlled by the government, right? So in the next 2 years, you realize by 1929 that the farmers are being forced to cultivate in collective farms, which are owned and controlled by the government. And these collective farms in Russian are known as the kolkhoz, right? See, these Russian terms are important. Okay, they might be asked. So kolkhoz, right? So now you realize that land is transferred to the government. The implements as well with which the farmers do agriculture, right? Like plow, for example, they are also being transferred to the government. Okay, a part of the profit is to be given to the government, and then the rest of it is to be divided equally amongst the farmers. That was the general idea. Apparently, it was a very visionary idea, but it failed spectacularly. Okay, it failed spectacularly. Now you will. This is the first time. Now you will realize that okay, Stalin is bonkers, but he's not really a tyrant of sorts, right? Why am I calling him one of the most brutal people in the 20th century? Now we are going to discuss that for a while. Now see, again you realize that this is not going to work out for the farmers in the long run, right? Because they are not owners of their own land. They are basically working for the government, so it's not really profitable for them in any case. Okay, because Stalin is going to take away most of their grain. So again, they are not happy. Okay, so some of the farmers protested. Of course, they didn't like the idea of working on a collective farm, and in order to protest, they destroyed their livestock. Now, livestock also, if you realize, is not their own. It is controlled and owned by the government. Everything in a socialist society is controlled by the government, right from the movies you watch, right from the songs you listen to. Just take North Korea's example, okay? North Korea doesn't allow South Korean movies to be broadcast in the country because they call them morally corrupt, right? No K-pop business, no BTS, Blackpink, Purple, Pink, none of that happens in North Korea, right? So they destroyed livestock, which was essentially owned by the government, and to the extent that the level of livestock in Russia reduced to 30%. That was the level of damage they inflicted. Now that just infuriated Stalin, okay? Like he's like completely losing his mind right now. He's like, ye kaise, how dare they go against my authority? They will have to be taught a lesson. He decided to teach the so-called lesson to the poor farmers, wherein he ordered the mass execution of millions of such farmers. Mass execution sounds like a very simple word, but you might want to understand the depth of the word. Mass murder of millions of farmers. Most of them were severely punished. Before being executed, they were sent to the gulags. Gulags are the concentration camps in Russia, just like the Nazi concentration camps. Okay. or otherwise they were exiled to very severe and harsh places like Siberia, where basically it snows throughout the year and nobody can live there for the longest period of times. This is why he was an absolutely savage person. And anyone with a basic understanding of the economy will understand that this program did not increase crop production. Okay, because you are not doing anything to actually empower the farmers. Like, you're not teaching them new agricultural practices, you're not helping them increase their income, you're not giving them modern tools, technologies, high yield variety seeds. None of that is happening. You are just putting them together and asking them to grow crops. In which planet is this going to work? Only Stalin knew. Okay, so farmers, of course, suffered massive losses. That's like very obvious. And the collectivization program, because it was so poorly implemented, it led eventually to one of the worst famines in Russian history for 3 years between 1930 to 1933, in which, because of the famine and lack of food and resources, roughly 400 million people died in Russia. You know, Stalin is collectively responsible for more murders than Hitler did ever in his lifetime, but you realize that he is not heard of that very often, like Hitler is, because I do not know why. Maybe because Russia won the Second World War and Germany didn't, right? So it's something to compare. Hitler killed far lesser people than, of course, there's no justification for any act at all, but then the magnitude of people killed by Stalin was much higher, right? So because of this famine, 4.5 million people died, and on top of that, he was already executing millions of farmers. So that brings us to an end of the Stalin regime. Of course, Stalin led the country to the Second World War also. He died in 1953 or something, I'm not sure. But yeah, so you get the drift, right? So this was who Stalin was, how he came to power, what was his policies, and his philosophy of collectivism or collectivization, right? This brings us to an end of this tutorial. I hope you took away some value from it. And in the last segment, in the next session, we would be dealing with the impact or the influence of the Russian Revolution across the globe. And until then, please take care of yourselves. Goodbye and have fun.